We only have so many engineering hours, and where are we going to spend our time? And the hardware team would probably like that we spend all of our time optimizing the SIB setup on site in the field IT. The product team is always going to advocate for the customer, so they're going to always have new feature requests and new analytics that the customer wants to see, new web development things. Me as the software director, I'm focused on how does our system scale and how is it robust and fast, and how can we support all of these different use cases.
Hector, would you mind just introducing yourself, your title? Tell me a little bit about what you do in your role here at Coldbore.
Yeah, so I'm Hector Nunez. I've been with Coldbore since the inception pretty much. And my role currently is software manager.
Yes.
Right? And so I'm overseeing the work of two of the teams in the company, the automation team and the data team.
So you're so good they gave you two teams to oversee.
Yeah, you can say that.
Cooper, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit, name, title, and what are you responsible for?
Yeah, sure thing. My name is Cooper Gradishar. I'm the director of software here at Coldbore. I joined in 2020, and it was at the time it was yourself, me, and Alex as kind of the internal team. And I really started on the infrastructure side of things. I wrote the first version of DDAS, which is our ditch data acquisition software. Now I'm overseeing kind of the whole software group. We have around 20 developers that work for us, so I'm kind of the manager of managers, so to speak. I manage Hector, Kelvin, and Benoit, who each manage their own software teams here.
Yep. So the software team has gone through a big increase, maybe a bit of an explosion. So Hector, take us back a few years. Tell me just a little bit about how has the software team, from your experience, evolved over the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. So when Coldbore just started working on this completion industry, we needed to move fast and we needed to get things out there to prototype and make sure that we're chasing the right type of business, right? So back in the day, if you want to call it the startup stage, we used the software that will get us the fastest there, right? So you want to call it a bubble gum and duct tape, sure, right? But we did our best. And back then I was on my own, doing all the development, the software development, and working with Craig on the hardware side, putting things together and gathering data, displaying it, and basically testing that the industry will want the products that we were doing, right? And back then we were doing the Sonic, the Sonic tool, the Perceptor, and then we realized about the necessity for tracking the operations, right? Like nobody's tracking real operations in real time, and that's where SmartPAD came in. So moving into the transition of okay, we have tested and the customers, they want a product like SmartPAD, right? We had to move from being a one-man show of development into more people to move faster and make it better, more reliable, more robust. So at that point, Coldbore took the decision to hire third-party companies, development companies, which in its own thing has its pros and cons, right? It's expensive.
Yep.
It's hard to manage those teams because there is managers over managers in those companies, and we're really the customer, and we're trying to ask for a lot fast because I want to make the best out of my money that I'm spending, right, on you. So we continue that with several development outfits, until Alex and Cooper came into the team, and that's where they were surprised that we were still using this third-party company hiring, right, like these outfits.
Well, so this seems very kind of interesting. So you come in and you realize, so Coldbore has been using a bunch of third-party companies to do a lot of the development work. So what was kind of the issue with that, and why was it important to start building out the team?
Yeah, I'd say there are a few issues. One, sort of as Hector was mentioning, like things are just out of your control. Things are not in your own hands when you're working with a contractor like that. The cost was sort of astronomical.
That's
We're paying
right,
in
yeah.
US dollars.
Yep.
And we had a lot of work to do on the data pipeline, data acquisition, bringing data up to the cloud in a fast, timely way, fixing a lot of the problems on the edge sites and the field IT, and also growing Coldbore's own IP with sort of the event detection stuff that we're doing now with the APR, unlocking more data potential.
There is a technical challenge that we realized at that point, right? That you can make data look pretty in a website and all that, but really the integrity and the quality of that data, it's connecting software to hardware with sensors and making sure that it's traveling from who knows where out there in the boonies, like with low internet bandwidth, and all these issues create a quality problem on the data. It doesn't matter how pretty you have it on the screen, right?
Yeah. Bad data is still bad data.
Exactly.
And bad visualizations of that bad data.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a technical challenge that we realized back then, and we needed a different kind of expertise, and that's where internal development started. Yeah.
Yes. So both of you, though, have had two very different journeys when it's come to software development. So your background, what, UVic? What did you study?
Yeah, I studied computer engineering at UVic, which is kind of electrical engineering plus more programming and more embedded systems type development. So.
Yep. And then how did you get to Calgary?
I was born and raised in Calgary, so I went out to UVic for a different experience and party and university type of reasons. But I came back and worked for General Dynamics out of school, and that's where I met a few of the other people on the team. That's where I met Alex. We started a week after each other at GD, and so worked there for 4 years developing military networking software. Got a really strong fundamental background in networking and embedded systems, and also that was my introduction to kind of agile development methods. The project I was on was kind of the first attempt by GD to have an agile-based contract. In the past, they'd been more fixed-term waterfall type contracts where they design up front and then they kind of deliver a project over 4 years.
And then everyone hates it when it actually shows up.
And the client uses it for the first time after 4 years and
Yep.
immediately notices that it's a square instead of a circle that they wanted. That's a big thing with Agile, is getting the customer feedback loop really, really tight and iterating over and over and over and over until you get it right.
So I guess you're really minimizing the amount of potential issues or gaps or blind spots because you can kind of do that a little bit more quickly. So by the time you actually release something, it has been tested multiple times with the customer. So it probably works better than the traditional waterfall method.
Yeah, it's generally accepted as kind of the best practice.
Yep. So Hector, so you were born in Mexico.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your journey to Canada and some of your training.
Yeah, absolutely. So I came into Canada directly to Edmonton when I was 20 years old, in November 2000 actually, and I went to school in NAIT for a electronics and automation diploma. So I come from the electronics world.
Yep.
Started working for the oil and gas industries after that, right? Like I got a job in Weatherford, directional drilling, working with the tools, repair and maintaining, and actually building new tools as well. And once I got my papers, my permanent residency, I went and applied for university at U of A for computer engineering, right? So went through that, quite a bit of a challenge for me, but hey, I like challenges, right? And so while I was in university, I was working in Weatherford, and that's where I met Nikolai and Craig.
Yep.
Right? We come from that way back in the day, and so once I did my my engineering degree, I was part-timing with Weatherford, and then once I finished, Nikolai had moved on to Encico with
Yep,
Blair,
yep.
right? And so I was back then kicking tires, what's going on, and they were kind enough to give me a job, right?
Yep.
And became the R&D guy there for developing and fixing, you call it, like whatever it needed to happen on the electronics world there. I had to come up with a solution and change processes and all that. So, and then so at that point, Encico was the technical expertise,
Yep.
the subject matter experts of oil and gas
Yep.
for Coldbore when they were doing the actual downhole tools,
Yep.
right? So we were running the tools and we were doing all the experimentation with them.
There's been a number of people that joined Coldbore from the Encico team. It almost seems
That's
like
right.
the Encico team became the kind of the first, operational team of Coldbore. So you're still on the electrical side, kind of at this point
That's
in time.
right. Yeah.
So we're going to get to that. But how did you end up getting here from General Dynamics?
Yeah, so kind of where General Dynamics was at that time. I'd been there for 4 years. The project was kind of winding down, getting a little more into maintenance mode. So not really developing new cool things anymore, but keeping things on the rails. And the team downsized quite a bit, and so less interesting for me. And then Alex had left 6 months prior, so he kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, this Coldbore thing is really starting to take off. It's a really small team. And I need a guy to come in and basically do all the infrastructure work." So it seemed like a really exciting opportunity, and I jumped aboard, and it was chaos in the beginning, but yeah, here we are now. So
Yeah. So Hector, basically, how do you move from the electrical side into the software side? Was that a bit of a challenge?
Not a challenge. I think it's one of those good opportunities that you see in life, and you just gotta hang on to them, right? So from being innate in the electronics world and then going to university for the computer engineering, I saw it as my opportunity to do that shift, right? Because in Encico, I was working on the electronics lab, and once we moved into the Coldbore as a full-time employee, I saw the opportunity to start developing software and
Yep.
focus on the software, right? And so Craig and we had that conversation, all right, so we need to do something with these sonic tools that we have. And we had that informal conversations of what, Craig, I wanna give a crack to the software since my degree and blah 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 and all that. And Craig was kind enough to take over the hardware, and so yeah, I started focusing on the
So you
software.
really founded the software development team at Coldbore.
Yes, the second generation, right? 'Cause
Yes.
we still have the previous engineers in
The Vancouver guys. Yep.
Yeah, Bill and Matt, they were still part of the team.
Yep.
But they are very specialized on digital signal processing.
Yeah.
And Matt was the electronics engineer.
Yes. So then Cooper comes along a number of years later and really, I guess, is charged with growing the team at Coldbore.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, I was developing kind of the edge data acquisition software. At that time, we had a big investment come in mid 2021, and Alex got a promotion to be the head of the whole technology group, and then I kind of stepped up to backfill him as the software development manager. And with all that cash, I mean, I was kind of tasked with grow a big development team, put in the processes, and scale this thing. So
there's a couple big milestones that have recently happened, and we're going to talk about one of them a little bit later on in a different video. But can you guys talk a little bit about the auto stage reporting? Because this is definitely this is part of the automation team that you manage. So where did this project get started? Like, what was the end result, or what was the pain or challenge that you guys were attempting to solve with auto stage reporting?
So we know that on the completions industry, they have this report, and everybody's doing it manually, right? And so it's very prone to user error, or how Cooper will identify an event or certain measurement versus how I will see it, right? And so it's always there's a user criteria on selecting this information, right? And just filling up that report. So the business saw the opportunity to automate this and create consistency and quality on that data, right? With all the sensor data that we have, with all the data that the users on the field are inputting into the system, or APR creating these time blocks and then logging the operational information, we have enough information to be able to create automatically these reports, right?
Yes. So essentially, the reports that the frac crews will generate and deliver to the operator, you guys were able to automate that from the data that's being collected. One of the things that Danica had told me was that one example was calculating the ISIPs, and that this was one example, but a lot of the calculations could be done very, very differently, which would mean, depending on, maybe who the frac crew was, who the specific person is. Mm-hmm. So it seemed like that there was a lot of inconsistency of calculations, and that you have an industry using different ways of calculating numbers.
The opportunity of Coldbore having the sight of how different customers operate, yeah, right? And they don't talk to each other, and they think they all have their own right answer.
Special sauce.
Exactly, like the secret sauce, and I'm always right. For us to be able to identify and see how everybody's doing all their work, and be able to pinpoint, like, all right, we see a trend on how this is being done or calculated, or this is the what would you say, the better choice for multiple customers.
Best practice.
Yep. Yeah, the best practices. We have the ability to hang on to that and start providing it automatically and making it a standard, right? Make customers realize that, hey, we can all talk the same language here, right?
Yeah.
And make it a better set of data. For example, for a production testing, data analytics, right? Yep. It can be done under the same language, right? Like that you can trust that data is being calculated the same way.
Talk to us a little bit about what is APR, and why was that actually such a foundational piece to be creating other maybe technologies or building off of that?
Yeah, so APR is basically using the events that we're detecting in the data to build up the critical path, right? The time blocks.
Yeah.
So basically, if you have the events that the valve opened, and then you have the events that the pressure started activating, then you can detect here's the start of a frac block, for instance. Yeah. And you kind of build your way up from there. So then you have the whole frac block and all of the key events within that frac block. And then that can kind of be used later down the data pipeline stage to calculate a stage summary for that frac block by knowing those individual events and then looking at the raw data throughout that block of time, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. Getting to know the different states of the operations, right? Yep. And zoning into the raw data on where, okay, I need to calculate my average in this stage of the frac. Okay, so we are able to identify the events, as Cooper is mentioning, of when it started, when it ended. Okay, so I can go get that data, create the calculation, put it into the report.
Got it. One of the other teams that you manage is the data team.
Yeah.
And we've been talking a little bit more recently about Snowflake, which is a data warehousing tool. So Cooper, can you maybe talk to us a little bit about kind of the transition from APIs into data warehousing?
Yeah, you can think of data warehouse as kind of the next paradigm shift in terms of data sharing, right? APIs are tried and true, but they're a strict contract where I make a very specific request for a specific type of data, and I get an answer. But I really have to, if I'm doing something more complicated, maybe I need to make multiple requests, or I have to build a program to make these requests in a certain order and stitch the data together myself and then put it in my own database. The data warehousing piece is really this more modern, cutting-edge way of sharing data where These companies like Snowflake and others have built basically an infrastructure for you to be able to share a database to somebody else as if it's their own database.
Yeah.
So basically they host all of these little micro instance databases of our clients' data, and then our clients can have a reader account to that data where they can log into Snowflake and just interact with the database as if they're interacting with their own company database. And so that unlocks a wealth of potential because they're working with the entire data set in a SQL database-like format that they're familiar with. So for an analyst, it's eliminating many steps to be able to work with the data and build analytics on top of that data.
If an operator wants to actually have their data kind of in their own kind of infrastructure, how do you send the data?
Yeah, so I mean, we try to support as many different types of data interfaces as we can. And that's because we want the operator to show up and go, okay, I'm used to working with data in APIs, or I'm used to working with data on WebSockets, or I'm used to working data on a Kafka queue, and we can support all of those different ingestion methods quite easily.
Yeah.
And basically, yeah, like we're kind of standardizing on, a couple of different types, but the Kafka queue is really nice, and that's something we're kind of working on right now, where it's a pull mechanism, so the client can kind of control how fast they're pulling in the data, and that comes straight from lean manufacturing, right? You want to support pull interfaces rather than push.
Yep.
And then the WebSockets on the other side is a push interface where we're basically trying to get the data as timely as possible to support real-time applications or dashboards that they're building that they want the data to the eyeballs as fast as possible, but they might miss a point or two now and then, right?
Well, it seems with the data team, and I'm just thinking, working with one of the data scientists, so Danica, and you guys are developing ways to make that data more robust for the data teams at the operators. So when you're utilizing something like Snowflake, it almost seems like Coldbore has the opportunity to do a lot of work that internal teams at operators would also be doing, and that probably also provides an opportunity to deliver that to every single customer at Coldbore. So there's kind of this interesting idea. So why is doing a lot of this data work kind of so important? Because if the operators kind of seem to be wanting to do this potentially internally, what are some of the advantages of Coldbore also doing this type of work for customers?
If I'm an operator and I'm building, analytics in-house, I'm building certain things that help my business be more operationally efficient. At Coldbore, the advantage of us kind of partnering with operators and helping them build those things is we start to build out this repertoire of use cases that we're aware of in the industry and really settling on, okay, these are the top 5 use cases that all of our operators are trying to build for. And if we can, build our data to be really easy to support these use cases and enrich it with the right metadata to support those use cases, it's kind of a feedback loop where our data just gets stronger and stronger and stronger to be able to support all of these different things.
Another advantage that I see is that Coldbore's database may be too complicated for a customer to understand. Mm-hmm. Like we have a lot of tables and relationships that they may not need to know about or utilize. Because
your business also related because you might be tracking way more data points than what
Absolutely.
They might be normally used to dealing with.
Correct, yeah. And so from moving data from our own database to a Snowflake, we have the opportunity to transform that data into a different schema that they can understand, and we can document even easier for them to understand, right? And as Cooper mentioned, it's more pointed towards the questions that they have, right? Like creating a table with all the information included into a 2D table is easier for them to consume than trying to understand 5-6 different tables where we have the data on our database, right? Yeah. So that translation is a really good advantage on Snowflake for the customers.
So can you maybe guys give a little bit of an overview of the different software teams that we have here at Coldbore, and maybe just talk a little bit about how they all kind of, scale up to provide, the SmartPAD solution?
So we have kind of 3, arguably 4 teams here. We have the infrastructure team, which is really their purpose is to acquire the data on site in a robust way and sync that data up to the cloud as fast as we can without any problems. They also manage all of our cloud infrastructure, all of our AWS infrastructure and APIs, data pipeline, streaming service.
Kind of sounds like a lot.
It is quite a bit, actually. And then all of the in-house developer tools that we work on as well. That's the infra land. Then we have the web development team, which it builds the SmartPAD web application and the mobile application. So they're kind of the UI, UX
So
type
that's
of
like with the
developers.
visualizing the data or making it kind of easy for the end users to work with or read.
Yeah, and there's kind of another responsibility that they have is basically making the job setup as easy as possible for our RTOC team. So they have a lot of knowledge of our internal processes and how to make, web interfaces to be able to really easily set up a job and intuitive for all of these
So
different jobs.
configuration happens of the hardware when it's getting connected on site, so they can make that easier for the field operators to.
Absolutely,
to set
like
up.
setting up a SIB.
Yeah.
There's a lot of complexity in mapping all the valves to what channels they support and,
Yeah.
and making that as easy as possible
Yeah.
saves us tons of operational efficiency.
Yes.
And then the final team would be Hector's groups, the automation team and the data team, and they're all kind of one unit, but two kind of different focuses there. And
That's right.
really, they're basically once the data comes in, what do we do with it? What processing needs to take place? How do we enrich the data for analytics? What automated steps we can do to detect events and time log and stage summary reports and all of that. All of that stuff is your
That's right.
wheelhouse.
Yeah, how to create or automate tasks that end users or internal users, for that matter. It even goes to daily reports for the company. Like, we want to see some sort of metrics or data that we want to see every day and see the improvements on certain business case, right? Like we're
And it sounds like it frees up time. So when people are on a job, instead of having to compile reports, this is something that can just automatically.
Absolutely.
It's a value add that saves them time and allows them to be focusing on more important things and know that the reporting is something that it's going to be accurate, it's going to be standardized.
That's right.
And it just happens, and they don't have to touch it.
Yeah, that's right.
When you have so many different divisions within software, and then of course there's the hardware and there's the product, how do you manage some of the complexity of all of these different people working together? Like, it doesn't seem like it's got to be an easy thing to coordinate.
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. Big challenge there is like, what do we work on? And there's a lot of different stakeholders within the business that have different ideas of what we should work on at any given time. And the constraint is always engineering hours, right? We only have so many engineering hours, and where are we going to spend our time? And the hardware team would probably like that we spend all of our time optimizing the SIB setup on site in the field IT.
Yeah.
The product team is always going to advocate for the customer. So they're going to always have new feature requests and new analytics that the customer wants to see, new web development things. Me as the software director, I'm focused on how does our system scale and how is it robust and fast and how can we support all of these different use cases. And then the devs have their own ideas. And so it can be quite a lengthy process for us to converge on, here are the things we're going to work on for this quarter. But then once we commit to that, we're flying in that direction for a quarter.
That's
And
right.
we don't, like the blinders are on, we're building and we're making it as good as we can with those engineering hours that we have.
Hector, so you have been here the longest at Coldbore, at least with anyone around this table. So you've been at this company, but you've also been with a lot of the people here for longer than the company. Why have you been here for so long? What's the reason?
So I'm really enjoying the learning of the different stages of the company, right? It was very natural for me to work in the startup phase of the company because you throw a bone and I'll chew on it until it's done, right? Like pretty much that's how I operate and like to operate, and that's what happened to me. Like I really enjoy the beginning of Coldbore, communicating with customers. What do they want? What do they need? What can we do better here and there, right? Once that was all done and we had a product established that we wanted to pursue, right? That's where it started to become more of the business learning, right? Like, all right, so the company needs to grow. There is more people coming in. There is expertise that is needed, like Cooper and Alex. Like they bring a world of expertise from the previous life, and being able to learn from these people, right? And at some point, being able to step back and start learning more of the business side rather than focus on doing all the every day.
Yep.
To me, that brought up a really good taste in my mouth of the continuous learning of all the phases in the company, right? And to the day, I still keep learning from everybody that comes in, and I'm really happy to work with everybody here. Yeah.
Cooper, what keeps you excited?
I'd say just the sheer challenge and impact of what we're doing. I mean, we're trying to transform the data in incompletions, and that's a worthy goal. It's wrought with huge challenge, and the startup culture surrounding that. I mean, we work with urgency, and we work hard, and we play hard, and the group of people here, I mean, it's a very people-focused organization, which you don't find everywhere. So I think when you find that, you find people that you enjoy working with, and you have the right culture and you have the right challenge. I think nothing beats that. So
it does seem that the opportunity that Coldbore has and what you guys are developing and creating, like this is something that is impacting and changing like the entire energy industry. Canada, the United States, and around the world. Like it almost seems like to be working for this tech company, this is something that you would almost more expect to see in Silicon Valley or something along those lines. What does it mean to be doing this type of work and creating this type of innovation, but just here in Calgary?
I mean, I kind of think that's the greatest part about this globalization we're going through. And I mean, even things like COVID, where things are moving out of those hubs, right? It's not just Silicon Valley, and it's not just New York City that have these tech companies. They can really happen globally, and we have a lot of colleagues in the U.S. that we work with, and really it's not just the place, but it's the people and the technology that can make it happen, right, within this new world we live in. So
I think Coldbore is a perfect example that remote work can work, right? Like it is possible, and it's efficient. The people are being are given the opportunity to be productive on their own environment, and they appreciate it. They appreciate their own environment and their own pace of work, and as long as they are being efficient and like when somebody is being productive and when they can give more. Right, and definitely we found a group of people that can give it all from a remote environment without having to micromanage or being, like, oh, you have to sit here because I gotta see what you're doing. No, I trust my guys. They're doing the work that they need to be doing at all times. Yeah.